Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 9. No, really, it works. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming right at you here from the heart of Trekland via Trekland Treks, letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek headlines and episodes. So, hey, instead of a hot take or a quick take, you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Look, I have been writing, editing, interviewing, authoring, commenting, punditing, collecting, archiving, dot connecting, fanning Star Trek for a while now. And I've just got to say, no, really. Hey, for all of my Canonista brethren out there who had been holding your breath, who didn't think you'd ever make it through an animation crossover episode and knew that a musical would never work, you can relax. Surprise! This episode is, yes, a musical, but it is just as principally technobabbled as you could ever expect. I mean, it works. It really works. Or let me put it this way. It's good, it works, and it actually advances the plot. Not just within the episode, for the season. I know. I was not expecting this. Now look, am I a huge fan of musicals? I like a lot of musicals, but I'm not a blanket fan. Same thing with Westerns. Same thing with rom-coms. Same thing with war movies. I've got my favorites, but I'm not a blanket fan. I'm not even a blanket fan of all sci-fi, but plenty of them I like. So I understand everyone who's not a fan of musicals. If you're a fan of this show, I think I think you're not only going to enjoy it, but you're going to be surprised at what they're able to accomplish here. Let me put it this way. I'll see your 88 miles per hour in a DeLorean, Doc Brown, and I'll raise you 344 giga electron volts. I know one thing's for sure. Over 2 seasons, we have never spent so much time in everybody's quarters. Well, first off, kudos to the entire staff for I can't wait to dive into the roots of this with them, but for envisioning this entire concept to begin with. And on the credits here, we've got the co-writers. So Dana Horgan, who's a co-executive producer here on Season 2 for Strange New. It's her first script for Star Trek, although she had 14 credits on Supergirl and 27 on Once Upon a Time, where she overlapped and wrote with her co-writer and her co-staffer here, co-executive producer Bill Wolkoff. And Bill Wolkoff, I had not noticed this before, had 23 credits as a writer on Once Upon a Time and was the executive story editor. Directing-wise, and this is a lot, Dermot Downs, it's his first Star Trek, but he comes over from Doom Patrol, The Tomorrow People, and Arrow. Well, did you notice the entirely new set of credits on this show? Of course, if it's a musical, you've got to have somebody doing the books and lyrics. And in this case, Tom Pulse and Kay Hanley. So Tom scored all seasons of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and he's contributed original music and score for shows like NCE New Orleans, Jane the Virgin, Charmed, Elementary, The Good Fight. It goes on and on and on. Kay Hanley was the lead singer of the 90s alt-rock band Letters to Cleo, which has had comeback years lately. She's won a Peabody Award for her songwriting for children's programs and television. It's an interesting duo, and I don't know if we're going to see more from them, but I'm ready for it, on Star Trek or otherwise. All right, little things, big things. For one thing, another excellent use of star maps in this one, and it's interesting. This is described as being on the far edge of the Alpha Quadrant. Well, this is the 23rd century. The far edge of the Alpha Quadrant is not as far as it would be 100 years later. So we get a map later on and see, no, we're indeed down along the Klingon border, sure, but down in the south, down by the Gorn hegemony, which is interesting considering the last episode is called Hegemony, and we've never yet paid off that Gorn dump moment from the first episode. So we're even in position now to have this subspace fold and launch this entire plot. So yay maps! Tim Peel and his team are really working off these maps and utilizing them for the storytelling, including the spread of the musical virus to the rest of the fleet. I love how everyone, at least in sickbay, knows that Roger Corby is the Louis Pasteur of archaeological medicine. That's a line that's right out of What Are Little Girls Made Of? And again, if you have not watched that episode, even if you're a little bit allergic to the original series, you do need to go and watch What Are Little Girls Made Of to catch up on this budding, building drama that's going to break out the minute the Chapel Corby plot takes hold. Oh, and Mbenga's shock look? Amused, but also shocked when Ortegas has no idea who Roger Corby is and no idea who Louis Pasteur is. Nice. Under the Cloak of War did not completely wear him out. So things kick off here with Anything Goes. Yay, it's the title song from Anything Goes. It's one of my favorite musicals. When olden days a glimpse of, yeah, you heard it. It's hysterical to me that this entire sci-fi premise, this anomaly kicks off, with Cole Porter. So, Marie Battelle is indeed canon now. Thanks a lot. It appears that the chronometer watch La'an got from Pelia in the other alternate timeline back in Tomorrow, the time travel show, means an awful lot to her, more than we first glimpsed. Oh, I love the classic shot down the Jeffries tube. Kirk's in it, Una's at the base, and it's that classic shot from the original series. If you haven't seen that, trust me, it is. It's awesome. And best of all, the Heisenberg compensators are a big deal. Now, this is the thing. The Heisenberg principle is the uncertainty principle. The Heisenberg compensator in Starfleet was, it was Mike Okuda, Rick Sternbach's response to the idea that the transporter no way could keep up with all the quantum particles and equations to perfectly replicate any transported person's body from one moment to the next. How can you possibly recreate that on a micro subatomic level? And the Heisenberg compensator was their answer. And to see it pulled into making this plot answer work is chef's kiss. I love it when the Heisenberg compensators get their day in the sunshine. Oh, and did you catch the incoming hail from the USS Nemecek? That starship was, yes, a memorial nod to Scott Nemecek, who Bill Wolkoff confirmed to me was not only a writer and producer who's known for Hannibal and Pushing Daisies, and actually was an associate producer on the original Trekkies documentary, but it turns out over the span of the career was a great mentor to both Bill and his co-writer here, Dana Horgan. What's amazing is I checked, and it looks like Scott's first sale as a writer was as a co-writer credit on the first season Voyager episode, Jetrel. He passed in 2016. And for this episode, the music alone gets its own subcategory of little things, big things. For one thing, did not see the a cappella version of the opening theme. So we've had the animated version and now the a cappella version of the opening, and it just made it. And then how did this sneak in? Somehow at the end of the big finale scene, we sneak in the original series, original arrangement of the closing theme. That just came out of nowhere. I don't understand the logic of it. I love it, but I don't understand the logic of it in the plot. It was still cool to hear it, though. Overall, I noticed that it seems that it's as hard to let the extras sing as it is to let them talk. Although they, too, got their moment in the sun, if you look at the back of the bridge in that big finale number. Okay, being a musical episode, this story was particularly rife with favorite lines and phrases. Among them, musical outbreaks. Let's ring the curtain down on this. Oh, Chris, you mean like an ensemble number? That was hysterical. And I don't know, was the line of the night, I doubt we will be bunnies. My favorite lyric line of the night, and there's so many contenders, has to be, it might be time to change my paradigm. sung loudly and broadly helps. But yes, thank you, La'an. And oh, yes, I do have questions. In the opening shots on the bridge, when Uhura is working your panel, who's in the command chair? Is it Jenna Mitchell in the command chair? I think Pike, Una, and even Ortegas are elsewhere in these opening scenes. They may not be, continuous, but that looks like Jenna Mitchell in the command chair. So she's third officer, at least on this watch. Go. Go, Wrong Fu, go. Oh, and Lieutenant Kirk's captain on the Farragut has no name, and his former first officer that he served under, I suppose, he kept his distance and no one questioned him. That was his description. Who's that? We don't get names all of a sudden. But this whole thing about training Kirk for his promotion, I'm confused. He's a lieutenant. He's got 7 years to go before he's he's got 6 years to go before he's captain of the Enterprise. He's going to jump in rank. They say he's on a fast track, but how fast is a fast track? Is he being groomed for a promotion in rank or a promotion in position? Is he going to be a first officer as a lieutenant commander? Is the Farragut, is the Samba class small enough that that's what it is? Lieutenant commanders or first officers, which we've seen before. I'm just saying, it was kind of, is that what's going on here? And my biggest question is, I am really glad that Pike and Battelle managed to patch things up here at the end and get things back on track. But she has to delay their vacation now because of a priority one mission. Like I said, they're down in the south, down by the Gorn hegemony. Is this going to be Gorn involved? Is this going to set up? Is she getting in position to jump into the plot for the next episode? These shows, we love to say how standalone they are, but look at how they seem to still thread one into the other. Anyway, I'm worried for Marie now that we actually officially know her first name. Oh, and so much to say about characters, so much and yet so simple, but I'm going to start with an enigma. We did have some extras in this show. They weren't always all dancing, but when Una and Kirk have their first encounter song moment in the corridor, I was confused for a moment. I know La'an winds up eavesdropping and has her heart broken to think she's going to lose her guy before she's even gotten started. But there's another female officer in a red dress in the corridor. I was confused for a moment. I thought that was La'an until I saw them both in the same frame. And then I thought later, I bet that's her stand-in. Don't have access to those names. It was the same frame, the same basic look. I'll bet you credit to Navy Beans that's Chrissy Chong's stand-in. And oh boy, Corby called. Roger Corby. I was so excited to see Roger Corby beam on the ship and take up his place in the chorus. But I guess that's going to have to wait. I guess he's even less of a singer than our good doctor. And the way the credits are listed, this may not be readily apparent at first, but this Klingon general in command of the Katinga ships, it's Bruce Horak. Yes, Hemmer himself is back as a Klingon and totally you know what? I was expecting maybe Klingon opera, but hey, I'll take Klingon death metal any day. I think it's unfair that we're jumping on Babs Olosuquin. He did have that really heavy episode last time, and I'm sure they're just going easy on him in this episode for his lack of full participation. Yeah, I'm sure that's it. And even Pelia has a moment here. So good on Carol Kane. I'm sure she's had her time of musicals on stage in her career. But look, Pelia is the one that plants the idea. Fundamental harmonics. Look, if you're going to have a character that's been around for a few thousand years, you might as well listen to what they have to say when you start down the plot solving road. And wow, what a choreography bonanza. What a showstopper they have planned around Jess Bush. I mean, she's doing her best Moulin Rouge here, don't you think? And yet it's a story point that feeds into her arc with Spock. I saw it coming, but I didn't expect it would dovetail so well with, again, advancing the plot the way it needs to be. And by advancing the plot here, I mean the eventual Chapel Spock play out the way we know it has to play out, with the two of them not winding up together. But boy, does that number. Chapel inhabits the whole ship with that power of that number. And, aside from her voice, with an album that she has out already, Chrissy Chong here, La'an, once again, that dramatic scene she has with Kirk, just, it's something. In an otherwise musical light show, gosh, she hits all the right notes. That could have been in any episode as a dramatic scene. And, as we should expect, Uhura here is the instigator. She's the one humming at her station right at the wrong time and gets all this started. Anything goes, again, is a great way to kick it off. I mean, she winds up being the instigator, but then also she's the director-conductor. As the crew needs to move along, she is the hero of the moment, and she gets to show off her gorgeous instrument as well. But watching Celia do all this and knowing that somewhere Nichelle Nichols is looking down and smiling and still thinking, damn, girl, I wish we'd had the opportunity to do a musical episode. She would have sang her guts out and would have been awesome. And how much first-generation fandom would have adored that. But oh, Ethan was riveting. Alice Cooper Spock was amazing. I also wasn't expecting David Bowie Pike, although I must say, I did not realize that the Kirk Smothers brothers were the comedy duo that I had been missing. But apparently I have been. And I say this, they always give Sam Kirk those light comedic moments, and I smile, and every time I see that scene of him laying on the floor when his brother comes to find him in Operation Annihilate in the original series. And I just can't fully enjoy his comic moments, knowing that's how it's going to end. He even says, some of us need fun to deal with the constant fear of dying. But oh my goodness, nothing to do with the musical. But wow, speaking of his scene with La'an, boom, we get Carol Marcus. James T. not only reminds us that this is the time when he's seeing Carol Marcus, but apparently he's seen her already. The baby, she's pregnant. David Marcus is on the way. And if you do the math, this makes David Marcus about 26 at the time of The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek II, which works out perfectly. Here we go. We've got Corby on the horizon, we've got T'Pring receding, and we've got Carol Marcus pregnant back at Starbase One. And looks like it's in canon sync to me. But I did not see that coming in the otherwise musical. But hey, let's look at the big questions here. I actually do still have some questions. Was the time travel episode a setup for the musical? Was everything with Chapel and Spock a setup for this musical? Was Pike and Battelle a setup for this musical? Did they build a bar this season as a setup for this musical? I mean, was everything in season 2 meant to set up this musical? I mean, it's fine if it was. It's just an amazing bundling of all the threads through all the shows, all the episodes, whatever the tone was, that so many of them are dealt with and handled, or at least exploited in the musical. Look, I talked about reactions to musicals. Whatever your take on musicals are, wherever they are in your personal preferences, fans were just worried about this musical, this format, right? How can this be canon? Well, look, it can be as canon as a drug. It can be as canon as a Psi 2000 virus from the Naked Now and the Naked Time. It can be as liberating as your emotions. Music can as a drug that mimics alcohol. I mean, all you need is a boatload of technobabble to explain it. Think about it. You've already got Uhura using music to communicate with first contact aliens. It's music and singing and emotionals and biochemicals, and it's all factored into the zeitgeist of everything Star Trek has used as story points before. Fans sitting at home looking at a musical as this thing in a box. I think this has been a masterful use of, even to wringing out the comedic aspects of it, because it is a ludicrous situation. That almost lent more reality to it. If I got one more mugging from our dear Chris Pike, or the raised eyebrows of practically everybody at times, it was a ludicrous situation to be in. And yet, ship security demanded that it be ended. It was a fleet-wide virus that would have rivaled the Borg of Picard 100 years later. So yes, the upshoot to the characters, to the ship, to the Federation is it was dangerously unhinged. It was dangerously unbound. And the fact that Uhura was the maestro of it all was completely in character, completely delicious. It was a boost to her leadership skills, the little cadet coming out of her cocoon that we've been watching for 2 years. And the one caution I had about this show, someone reminded me, it was all very Terran musical. It was all very Western Terran with the show tunes, with the structure, with the rules. And if you remember that it was Uhura that kicked this off in the first place, then okay. It's like the Excalbians picking their examples of good and evil right out of Kirk's little history brain. You look at it that way, it makes sense. But I don't want to gloss over what an immense feat pulling off this episode was. So apart from Pulse and Hanley, the composers and music writers, there were, I counted, a whole 2.5 screenfuls of extra folks who were dealing with the choreography, dealing with the arranging, the composition, the engineering, the music additional. It was just a huge extra hurdle on top of this episode. It was amazing, with crafted songs definitely fitting each character and each moment in the plot. It was hard to come up with favorite lines, just the ones that jumped out at me, but it's going to take years of listening to this, the lyrics interweaving with what's going on in the episode as well as the season. I was not expecting this. And then to leave, finally, everyone where they are. I mean, I'm serious. They only get 10 shots a season. This was hardly a gimmick show. It does a lot of heavy lifting. When this episode is over, things are where they need to be. We're waiting on Corby to arrive. We're waiting on Chapel to depart. We're waiting on Spock to maybe, I don't know, reapproach T'Pring? La'an to open up at all? But overall, everyone being where they need to be, the gloom is ready to set in when they face the Gorn. And if that's not what hegemony is about, I'll eat my tribble. So yes, it is a gimmick show. It's as much a gimmick show as a courtroom drama, as a wartime actioner, as an animated crossover. They all work. The plot is advanced, the characters work, and Star Trek looks very relevant. Oh, one last thing. This quantum uncertainty field, did anybody see that as an homage or draw any conclusions, any correlations to, oh, I don't know, a little gizmo I've known for a couple of decades now called the infinite improbability drive? Did anybody think about this? 42 times? I don't know. Let me gather up my robe and clutch my towel a little harder. But hey, that's probably as good a place as any to sign off on this second opinion. Wow. What an awesome episode, and yet so simple, and yet so powerful. So surprising, I hope. But what do you think? What do you think about what I think? Please leave your comments below. Hey, and would you please like and subscribe, boost the signal? I dare you. I dare you to subscribe for some Star Trek sanity. Most of all, if you appreciate Dr. Trek's point of view, if you appreciate our Trekland experience here, I invite you to look and check out all of our podcasts and live streams and experiences like Trekland Trek's day tours for location sites, the Trek Files podcast from Roddenberry, Trekland Tuesdays live, everything that you can catch from Trekland. Cadet Alice watches Prodigy with Dr. Trek, sure. All of it is over there at LarryNemecek.com. Check it out, would you? And, Trek well.